nonprofits, et cetera, to come in and introduce themselves to us and share some of your challenges and opportunities. So that's why you're here today. And you're going to be speaking under the Housing Resources panel. And we have our full council here today, so it's a great opportunity for us to meet one another. We have representatives today from the Sedona Verde Valley Association of Realtors, Catholic Charities, Verde Valley Habitat for Humanity, Neighborhood Services City of Yuma, and a housing study update, as well as we have Jim Lawler from Lawler Construction here. So it's kind of a large panel, so we're going to try to just jump right in and spend a few minutes, again, introducing yourselves, and really appreciate all of you working with us through these virtual platforms and taking the time out to be with us today. So we're going to start first with a representative from Sedona Verde Valley Association of Realtors. I believe that would be Debbie Smith. Thank you for being here.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, council members. I just wanted to give you a little bit of insight on our organization. I have been a realtor in this area for about 22 years, happily living in Cottonwood. So our SVVAR, Sedona Verde Valley Association of Realtors, is a membership of 571 members, which are realtors, and also 295 secondary members. They are also realtors, but they don't do a majority and primary work here in the area. So 866 members strong. We also are a part of the Arizona Association of Realtors, about 14,000 members. And of course, National Association of Realtors is 1.4 million. And that makes up the largest trade organization in the country. So real proud to be a part of this organization. I am the 2020 president this year, very much a pivoting sort of new reality for all of us. We are really excited that the state Arizona Association fought really hard for us realtors to remain essential services during the time of the shutdown. So all of the realtors and partners, lenders, title companies have been able to continue to work and thrive and grow our economy and our community. So I'm really excited about what the state association has done for us locally. As far as what we bring to the table, we love the partnerships with the community. The National Association of Realtors on our behalf have grant programs available to the city and the communities that we serve. There are small growth grant opportunities that would be for maybe paying for a speaker for educational purposes, creating walkable neighborhoods, transportation opportunities, any type of community collaboration. There are also placemaking grants. We actually did a grant a couple years ago for the Veterans Park and a bench there in Cottonwood here. We have grants available for bettering our community outdoor spaces, housing opportunity grants, fair housing, diversity training, speakers, things like that. So reach out to us if you have any of those needs. We would love to partner with you. As far as the market goes, everyone knows, you know, it's a seller's market, so to speak, in our entire multiple listing service, which is Sedona, the Verde Valley, Camp Verde, and throughout. There are only 212 residential properties available for sale currently, as of a couple of days ago. And in Cottonwood, there's 41. So horrible low inventory situation that we're in. So we're working, realtors are working really hard to get the right people in the right places. Out of those, we have seen between 45 and 50 sales or closed transactions here in Cottonwood over the last couple of months. And that, of course, speaks to us running out of inventory before long. So we're seeing people, of course, coming from other parts of the country, from Phoenix. The pandemic has not slowed down our business as far as the people coming in and having interest in our great community, but it has slowed down people putting their signs out in their yard and wanting to come in and list their homes for sale. So I'm proud of our realtors for being cautious with pandemic safety and health requirements. So I'm proud about all of that. I am sad that we don't have enough affordable housing. So that's a challenge that we all are seeing. I do like that Yavapai County has that home of your own program, which is a smaller home floor plan building process. So I'm anxious to see that get off the ground. And my association executive or CEO, Kim King, she might be on this call to give you any more insight maybe that I missed. And I'm happy to answer any questions you have at the end of our panel.
That's great. Thanks, Ms. Smith. We're going to hear from all the panelists, and then we'll ask questions at the end. But really appreciate you being here. All right, let's move on then to the representative we have here from Catholic Charities. I believe we have Sarah Rendon. How are you?
Yes, I'm Sarah. Good, thank you. Thank you all for having me. My name is Sarah Rendon, and I'm the Housing Supervisor for Catholic Charities of Northern Arizona. And I'm just here to talk briefly about a couple of our different housing programs. We cover all 5 Northern Arizona counties. We have various programs throughout Northern Arizona for those that are experiencing homelessness. There are some exceptions. We also would serve folks fleeing domestic violence and with substance abuse issues that have affected their ability to be housed as well. We have family shelters and reentry houses for men and women exiting jail or prison throughout Northern Arizona. The closest one to Cottonwood would be in Prescott, which is a reentry house for women with justice involvement. But here in Cottonwood, we do provide some services specifically to the area as well. We have all of our services. The starting point is to do an intake with a coordinated entry worker. Those workers here in Cottonwood are Janet and Elva. I can list their numbers in the chat if you would like, or I can just say their numbers. But the first step in all of our housing programs is to do a coordinated entry with Janet and Elva and to get a little bit more information as to whether or not somebody qualifies. Our services, again, are for those that are experiencing homelessness, meaning living in a shelter, in a car, in some place not meant for human habitation. We have temporary rental assistance and move-in costs for some folks. That's called our rapid rehousing program. Again, they go right to Janet and Alva, and we would get them hooked up with that program. We also have permanent supportive housing units, scattered site units throughout the area in Cottonwood. And those are for the folks that are most vulnerable. So those that have been experiencing homelessness for many, many years. And that's homelessness is traditionally caused by some sort of disability. And lastly, due to the situation that we find ourselves in with the pandemic, we have been granted some CARES Act funds. Those funds, what we're using those for at this point is emergency funds. We're putting folks in hotels, either while they're waiting COVID results to get to the next step, or if they're experiencing homelessness somehow related to COVID, if they've lost their jobs due to COVID and things like that, we have some emergency hotel funds. Those are temporary. Traditionally, our services aren't emergency services. They're more long-term housing solutions. But again, due to the pandemic, we have received some additional funds. That being said, most of our, we're essential workers as well right now. We are working with folks, seeing folks, but we are obviously putting extra precautions and adjustments in place, such as doing a lot of our appointments like this over Zoom. We are doing all those intakes, like I said, with Janet and Alva. Those will be done over the phone. We have the ability to do move-ins over the phone. So just a little bit of a mix of over the phone, in person, and Zoom right now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Rendon. Appreciate you being here. Again, we're going to hold questions for the end. Next, we've got from Verde Valley Habitat for Humanity, Tanya Sims. Thanks to you for being here. Can you hear us okay? Great.
I can. I just had to turn my mic on. Thank you. I appreciate the invitation to participate in the planning retreat and the presentation. And I wish I could see all of you a little more closely, but you really look like little dots on the screen for me. So I hope you're all staying happy and healthy. So many of you are very familiar with Habitat for Humanity. We partner with the city and the county and SFAR, and many of you for quite some years in developing affordable housing here locally. But for those of you who are not quite so familiar, I just wanted to share some background on us and what we've been doing here for the past 25 years. We are a not-for-profit Christian housing ministry. Our vision is to build homes and provide housing for everyone, because everyone deserves a decent place to live by building strength, stability, and self-reliance in their lives. So we partner with qualified and approved Habitat homeowners. They go through a pretty strenuous process to become Habitat homeowners. They then build their homes, and then they have an affordable mortgage. An affordable mortgage is defined as what they can afford to pay at the time, but no more than 30% of their income at the time of acceptance. So our service territory includes all of the Verde Valley and Sedona. We can't go outside of that territory, but that's our territory. As I said, we provide affordable mortgages and affordable home ownership. And by how we do that is we partner with qualified and approved home buyers, donors, businesses, volunteers, cities, counties, and everyone who will donate their time and make financial contributions in many areas to make it happen. So affordable housing is a huge topic these days. We know that every day more and more families find themselves in a struggle to keep a decent roof over their heads. They're caught in punishing cycles of unpredictable rent increases, overcrowded conditions, and lack of access to land and affordable financing. And these families live in constant burden of uncertainty, stress, and fear. So we know that rental rates locally continue to increase and rental options are decreasing. We know that home real estate prices continue to increase. They outprice many low to moderate income residents from the opportunity from home ownership. SFAR has a lot of statistics they can share in that area. So with a little help, Habitat homeowners are able to achieve the strength and self-reliance they need to build better lives for themselves and their families. They're empowered to overcome the barriers that so often stand between them and their families, having better, healthier, more financially stable lives. I'm pretty sure that as folks who work in our community, city, and government, you've probably read many housing studies that show that affordable housing and ownership has a straight line between quality and well-being of children, their access to resources, whether it's education, improved ability to increase their family income, and also healthier better health in their lives. So I'm not going to go through all of that with you. But we do know that shelter provides a solid foundation for all of this. It's the platform in which a family lives out today's realities and prepares for tomorrow's transformations. And every Habitat home changes lives, both those of the families who help build them and all those who offer the hand up in a time of need. In the 25 years that we've served this community, we have built 16 new homes. We've renovated 4 homes. We've had 4 homeowners fully pay their mortgages in full. When they pay their mortgages in full, they end up with a wealth source for them and a potential resource to pass on to their future generations. And that's what most of our homeowners report, is they have something that they can pass on to their next generations. In December of 2016, we created a critical home repair program. And since we started that program, we've completed 66 home repairs, serving 97 individuals in our Verde Valley. So those we represent are multiple generations of families whose lives have been permanently changed through the stability that home ownership and safer, healthier homes provides. In our critical home repair program, it primarily serves aging homeowners, although any low-income homeowner can apply. I think that seems to be a little bit of a misunderstanding because when we report our outcomes and those we serve, it usually is our aging population. But it's usually the aging population who's been in their homes for quite many years, and they're now at a point where they have very limited incomes, oftentimes only living on Social Security, retirement. Their home becomes in disrepair and their health needs change, so they need some improvements made so that they can stay in their homes, or we can help them improve their health and safety in their homes. So that's why we created the Critical Home Repair Program, because we know we have a ton of local homeowners who have those situations and they just need a little help to be able to stay in their homes. But those homes also create our affordable housing stock, our inventory. We want to make sure that we can keep those homes in our inventory, because it's not always it's not always relevant or able to replace those homes if we don't continue to keep them in our inventory. If they go away, the cost of construction today makes it prohibitive just in standard construction to make that an affordable home. So our challenges and where the city can help create affordable housing or help there's many things that we need to do to develop affordable housing and workforce housing. So we're talking about some interchangeable terms. Everybody says affordable housing, but affordable is what's affordable to me at the time that I go out to buy a home. So we're talking about affordability for our low-income residents, and we're also talking about workforce housing, because many of our low-income residents are our primary workforce. And that includes people with educations, teachers, and police department, employees, and fire. And we're talking about a large span and large number of individuals who can't afford housing right now because it's out of reach for them. So some of the things that I recommend to the city, and I'm not making any assumptions that the city is not working towards any of these focuses and goals. I'm just saying that this is what we see as a nonprofit whose primary focus is developing, building, and providing affordable workforce housing in the Verde Valley. And we also advocate for affordable housing for all, no matter where they are. So one of the things are planning, organizing, funding, building, addressing affordable housing. It's a huge problem, right? If we only look at those big ideas, I've heard a lot of city officials who just want to look at large projects where you can house, a few hundred people through rentals. Sometimes that's what the lens. They're trying to find a way that they can serve as many people as possible. And I'm not saying don't do that, but we also have to look at those smaller opportunities so that we have diversity in housing, but we don't overlook those opportunities to house everyone who may be able to be housed, rather than just focusing on those rental properties. Housing is a bigger topic than it's ever been before. But if we follow the advice of Desmond Tutu, who I'm pretty sure most everybody's heard of, there's only one way to eat an elephant. It's a bite at a time. And we know that what he meant by that is that everything in life seems daunting or overwhelming is only possible if we handle it just a little bit of it at a time. So I was hoping that Mary with Viva Rio would go before me, but since she didn't, I might say something that she's probably going to say, and I'm not going to go into detail, but I do hope that the city will support, encourage, and participate with everyone in the Verde Valley to address housing needs. It's not housing, affordable housing is not just a local issue. It's not just city, it's regional, state, national, and it's actually becoming international for many. So it's a topic that we can tackle. We just need to start. So follow through and finalize the Cottonwood housing study. I'm sure Mary's going to be talking about that. We need to know more about what needs to be addressed and what needs to be prioritized. I think we'll learn from that study. We can determine together and collaboratively how we can increase our capacity to serve more individuals. Jim Lawler might address building codes, but building codes sometimes are prohibitive to affordable housing. So some of the codes and the requirements make the cost of construction higher than it could be. There's some ways that we could save some funds in development if some of those codes are really looked at and examined as to whether they're necessary. Impact fees. There's impact fees that can be waived or significantly decreased in support of affordable home builders and renovators. Of course, there needs to be some details put in place so that you can determine who might be able to qualify for those reduced fees or waived fees. You can adopt standardized house plans. I know Debbie said something about Yavapai County's house plans, and I believe there was some conversation with all of the cities to somehow incorporate those into your community development offices and making those available. We need to develop resources for individual home builders and for construction loan financing. So when you have a low-income home, somebody who's low-income and wants to build a home, oftentimes the biggest hurdle for them is the financing. So you could also develop tax incentives that would inspire and attract developers and builders of affordable housing. I know that there is going to be some push and hopefully some movement at the state of Arizona level to push for some state tax credits, but we don't have to wait for them. You can designate specific funding in the city's budget that only goes towards affordable housing. If you have land that could be developed for affordable housing, then we can look at that and determine if it's viable. And I think a lot of our local towns don't know that they can actually donate land to nonprofits in an effort to build affordable housing. The partnerships, I think the city understands the need for partnerships. It takes many, many, many partnerships in order to develop a variety of affordable housing. So it needs to be businesses, utilities, home builders. Everyone has a stake in affordable housing. It's not just the city. It's not just those low-income community members. Everybody has a stake. If we don't have affordable housing available for our workforce, then you don't have a workforce. They don't have anywhere to live, right? You can budget, as far as critical home repair, you can budget annual funding that goes only towards low-income homeowner repairs and improvements. There is some creativity that's necessary when you are looking at how to budget and where to find the money, but I know we are creative people. So Verde Valley Habitat has in the past typically built one home a year. For the first time in our existence, over the span of a single year's time, we are going to house 4 families through new or renovated housing. We will continue to operate our critical home repair program because it's absolutely necessary. That program continues to expand because of the need. But I feel that if our small nonprofit can expand our resources and relationships to increase our capacity to serve individuals through affordable housing, and we bring a unique lens to our relationships and collaborations to all who are willing to focus and develop affordable housing, then we're not unique. Definitely not unique. We know that everybody else can do the same thing, but on a bigger scale when we're all working and collaborating together. So the only way we know of to build affordable housing is by partnering with many, because it's such a huge task. So it's doable. Let's get to work. Let's focus on housing and keeping the focus on housing until everyone has a safe roof over their heads and a decent place to live. That's what I have to say. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Sims. I appreciate your optimism too. Thank you. And I'm sorry you can't see us too well. We're trying to keep plenty of distance between us, so we have a wide pan right now, and I'm sorry about that. All right, so next we have Rhonda James. You come from the city of Yuma. You're a connection from our illustrious city manager. We sure appreciate him getting you on the call today. How are you?
Hi, thank you. Yes, I'm very glad to be here, and I appreciate Ron inviting me. I was looking forward to getting to come and spend the night in Cottonwood, but I'm going to make Ron give me that at a future time, since I couldn't come this time. But as this was said, I am Rhonda Lee James, and I'm the Assistant Director of the Department of Community Development with the City of Yuma. I manage the Neighborhood Services Division of the department, and we're the group that oversees the expenditure of federal entitlement funding. Specifically, we manage Community Development Block Grant, which is CDBG, as some of you know it, and home funds that come to the City of Yuma directly from HUD. So let me begin with a bit of a primer on federal funding from HUD for cities and counties. And I didn't define HUD, I think you all know, but it's the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. Sometimes I get lost in the all the acronyms that we talk. But communities that are of a sufficient size, and depending on what the funding source is, get their CDBG and home funds directly from HUD. Yuma is big enough that we get CDBG funds by formula, and Yuma County is big enough that we get home funds. My division manages the home funds on behalf of all of the units of government in the county. HUD also allocates CDBG and home funds to each state, and the state is responsible for distributing that money to smaller jurisdictions. Let me compare just a little bit. In Yuma, we get our funds directly by formula each year, but we don't have to ask the state for grants. Cottonwood and the other smaller cities in your county are reliant on the state for resources. Because CDBG and home funds are primarily used for affordable housing activities, we have a bit of an advantage in our efforts in Yuma to provide affordable housing for our low-income residents. And all of this brings me to the question Ron asked me to address with you. How can Cottonwood encourage development of much-needed affordable housing? I have a few tips for you, and unfortunately, I really don't have a magic wand. I wish we all did. First of all, you need to make friends. That's easy to say, right? Make friends with the staff at the Arizona Department of Housing, known as ADOH, again with my acronyms. ADOH is the Arizona department that awards home and CDBG resources, as well as low-income housing tax credits, the State Housing Trust Fund, and private activity bonds. ADOH has responsibility in Arizona for the housing resources, and you need the staff at ADOH on your team and to buy into your project. Make friends with elected officials, not yourselves, but with those that represent Cottonwood in both the state legislature and Congress. They need to know about your housing needs and your plans, and you need to keep reminding them of the problem. If they're aware, they can help us find solutions. Make friends with developers who have experience with low-income housing tax credits. LIHTC, as we call it, is one of the best resources for developing new affordable apartments. But the process of securing those funds is hard. Experience really does count. So recruit someone that has been successful. And there's a lot of those in Arizona. So go to ADOH or the electeds armed with hard facts on the lack of affordable housing in your community. And Tanya kind of took a little bit of my bubble here when she was talking about your housing study. But you really do need to be totally versed on what your housing situation is from a quantifiable standard. So, for example, don't just tell that the rent is too high in Cottonwood. Tell them a person in your county must make $19.73 an hour to afford a modest two-bedroom home, which means that a hotel or a restaurant employee serving the tourists must work 1.5 jobs just to pay for the roof over their head. Be prepared to tell them how many rentals are actually available and what kind of shape are they in. Does your workforce have to commute a long distance just to find a home? Are employers having a difficult time finding workers because of housing shortage? Just be armed with all of your facts. It really is hard to find anything positive to say about this pandemic, but it has shined a bright light on the affordable housing crisis in this country. People were struggling to find homes they could afford before the pandemic, and the situation is even more dire now. But at least now people are talking about our problem. I look for more resources to become available that might help us come out of the other side of this pandemic better prepared to house people who have low incomes. So keep an eye on that and keep an eye out for what opportunities may be in the future. Finally, land. And again, Tanya mentioned the land, but land is one of the best resources you can bring into any affordable housing proposal. And if you can find a way to acquire that land without the strings that are attached to home or CDBG funds, then you have another advantage. It's difficult to make affordable rentals cash flow. I mean, if affordable housing was profitable, we wouldn't have a shortage, would we? So if you can donate the land to a project, it reduces the debt service and allows the owner to offer lower rents while keeping a positive cash flow. So I'm going to close by telling you about the Mesa Heights apartments. My group launched a revitalization effort for a neighborhood in Yuma that's known as Mesa Heights. Arizona Avenue is a main thoroughfare through the neighborhood, and many years ago, the city bought up right-of-way with the idea of widening that street. That widening project fell through, so we were left with several blocks of vacant lots, just nothing but dirt. With those dirt lots in hand, I started recruiting partners. I got a nonprofit agency that was affiliated with the Housing Authority to join me, and we recruited a developer who was really successful at LIHTC projects. Together, we managed to build 58 units of affordable rentals, a mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms, and I'll brag a bit by saying they are really gorgeous. The blighting influence of those dirt lots was replaced by a development that demonstrated to the community that affordable housing can be a positive influence on a neighborhood. I'm going to leave you with 4 things to remember. Offer strong data and have a firm project plan. Forge partnerships, use your influence, and bring incentives to the table. So again, I thank you for the opportunity to participate today. I could talk the entire hour about this because it's besides my work, it's my passion. But I'm available to answer any questions that you might have.
Well, that's great. Thank you, Rhonda. I can tell why Ron spoke so highly of you.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us today. Thanks for the information, too. And yeah, do stick around. We're going to have lots of questions. So speaking of data, Mary Shaquin, thanks for joining us again. The housing study, I'm very excited about this in partnership with Sedona and Cottonwood. We're working on a housing study. What's the latest?
Okay, can I just give a little background as to how we got to where we are today, for those that aren't familiar? We've recognized that housing is a major issue in the Verde Valley for a long time. Actually, there was a countywide study, and I know, Mayor, you actually led some of the discussions as a part of that, where workforce housing was a key issue. Here in the region, actually about 2 years ago, Justin Clifton brought representatives from across the region together to start talking about how we as a region can address workforce housing and how we can meet some of the needs in the region. We all have a sense of what we think it is, but as Rhonda said, and as Tanya said, we need statistics. And so what happened about a year and a half ago is that Sedona hired Elliott Pollock to do a study for Sedona, which actually was going to incorporate part of the Verde Valley as well, just because Sedona doesn't have the capacity to house all of their workers there. And so as a part of the study that Sedona did, Cottonwood and all the other municipalities and the county came together to do another study that really focused on the entire region. Our launch was to be in March. And as you can imagine, that got changed pretty dramatically because we really could not move forward with our study at that point. And council members, I have the scope of work in the packets that you received so that you know what Elliott Pollock is doing for us. So we'd come together regionally to start talking about the regional study. And Pollock was very clear they were going to, focus on the Sedona study first because a lot of the information from the Sedona study was going to be critical. We were supposed to get together in March to start drafting actually our survey. Pollock did not do that for us. And so everything got put on hold. As you can possibly imagine, the initiatives we wanted to do for the study, the acquiring of information information could not be done. So for the last sort of 6 months, after we started moving through COVID and thought that we were coming out on the other end, we as a region have worked together to develop a survey. It is being tracked and assessed by Yavapai College for us, so they are acquiring all of the data on it. We have actually also accumulated a whole plethora of marketing materials that will be used across the region, so our messaging is comparable across the region. Elliott Pollock has started doing some of the research for us so that they will have that ready to go. We have not gotten at this point any of those results yet, and expect to start getting them very soon. I think we owe a deep debt of gratitude to Sandra Sellis, who actually translated our survey and part of our marketing materials, which are also in your packet, into Spanish so that we can address it bilingually. And the region is going to be a little more creative than what Sedona did in how we are approaching getting statistics. We felt that we really wanted to hear from the workforce, and we wanted to be as broad as we can. So I have been working with every single community to identify how they're going to approach their workforce to get the information that we need. Some of it is through, letters to businesses that the cities will be sending out. We'll be using our chambers. Business permit holders are going to be getting a letter with the information. We are actually going to be handing out the little bilingual cards with the QR code to all the people that ride our buses. Because again, it's the workforce that we want to get the information from as we're moving forward in this process. That data is going to be really critical as Elliott Pollock prepares the report. We had hoped to launch and do the survey in December, and then all of a sudden things got a little crazy again. So at this point, our hope is that I will bring the entire region together the first week of January to make sure everyone has the marketing and everything that has to be done. And the following Monday, we would launch as a regional basis to really start targeting and getting the responses for the survey. Now, I will say that the Sedona study is complete. The council received the draft of their study last night. There is certainly regional data in what they did, and some really, I think, key points that will also transfer over into concepts that can be used in the region. One of the things, Mayor and Council, I would like to bring up, though, is as when we were having our earlier discussions on workforce, one of the key points that Pollock brought up regarding the issue of workforce housing and low-income housing. I mean, people tend to confuse those two. They're very different. We can have workforce that has salary of $50,000 that can't afford a home here because the prices are so high. And then there are the other issues of low income where there are other opportunities available. But the real issue that we have here in the Verde Valley is that, as Rick Merritt said, we are losing the fabric of the Verde Valley. The numbers of our ages from 25 to 59 have decreased dramatically. So as Liz Nolan said, we have a lot of younger people that are younger than 18 and a lot older than 16, but we're losing the group in between that needs the workforce housing that we're talking about. And so I think we need to look at, some of the diversity in all of that. Pollock, when they made their presentation, they certainly provided recommendations and tools, which we will also get in our process. I mean, one of the things that I have seen as I've done this, and actually I've been asked a few times to actually even work with developers in the region. This was more on a county level. But I think one of the things that I hope will be an outcome of this study is that we as a region sort of create or design the community we want. And that as we're looking at who we want to be here, the diversity that we're looking at within our community, that we even design what kind of housing we want so that we have a plan in place. And then when that plan is in place, we can share it with developers. We can recruit developers here that will actually help provide the kind of housing that we need. I think it will also send a strong message to maybe individuals who are coming that may not want to provide the kind of housing we're looking for. So that's kind of, very honestly, that's a vision that I have. I think that's what I see coming out of this, because we have to define for ourselves what we want and what we're looking for, and then address all of the different capacities, as Rhonda spoke of and as Tanya spoke of, to meet the diverse housing needs in the Verde Valley.
All right, thank you, Mary. I look forward to seeing that report when it's finished. I know there's been a lot of roadblocks that have prevented it from moving as we had expected in the beginning. But I think the last study that Cottonwood did was, I want to say back in 2005, it was a much smaller study, just Cottonwood specific, but even those numbers were pretty bleak at the time as far as how much housing inventory we have, you know. And
it's very bleak.
all right, Mr. Lawler, are you with us today, Jim Lawler? I'm not sure if he was able to join us or not. He was invited. He confirmed, but he's probably feverishly building homes right now so that Debbie Smith can sell them. So he may not be able to join us. So with that, let's just go ahead and open it up for questions. Council, do we have any questions for our panelists? All right, I'm going to start off then. Debbie, you mentioned a grant program that was available through your Realtors Association. I'd like just a little bit more information on that, as far as what the grant's for, and who can apply, and how much is available.
It is actually through the National Association of Realtors, but you would initiate it through us, the association, and Kim King, our executive, can give you some more guidelines on the application process. But there's several different programs, and, you know, maybe up to, I think, $1,500 to get speakers in for some educational seminars, things like that, regarding fair housing or diversity or other housing opportunities, financing, that sort of thing. Upwards of about $5,000 for other community resources to clean up a community open space or maintain that. Things like any type of community collaboration. There's several different grants that we could fit into, maybe some subject matter that we could partner together. So yeah, come to us and we can see what your needs are and where it will fit in with us. Sedona Verde Valley Association, you know, we love to partner with the community for those community outreach projects, not only here in Cottonwood, but the entire Verde Valley and Sedona.
Okay, great, thank you. And for Sarah Rendon, you mentioned some of the housing inventory that you have on the Prescott side. I'm just curious, how many units do you have available here in the Verde Valley, and when you house folks, and what's the average length of stay for those individuals or families?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So the two different housing programs that I was speaking of, rapid rehousing and permanent supportive housing, both of those are considered long-term permanent housing. So right now, currently in Cottonwood specifically, we have 18 permanent supportive housing units. And then between Cottonwood and Prescott, we have about 35 permanent supportive units. Rapid rehousing is always changing, just because, again, like I said, that's temporary rental assistance and move-in costs. What I didn't mention is that all of our services provide housing-based case management as well. So we're not just getting people into units and leaving them. These are people that have been experiencing homelessness sometimes for a long time. So we provide housing-based case management just to make sure they maintain. But honestly, I would say the average length of stay in our permanent supportive units can be, you know, anywhere from, you know, it's hard to say an average year to, we have some folks in those units for up to 10, 11 years sometimes.
Wow. Okay, thank you. Follow-up question? Yes?
A question for, I think it was Rhonda. You had mentioned something about, was it the city or private landowners donating land to get built for affordable housing? Or how does that work?
Is that for me or for Rhonda?
Rhonda.
Okay, I'm sorry that you were breaking up just a little bit. Would you repeat the question?
You had said something about either the city donating land or private owners donating land so that they could build affordable housing. How does that work?
There's a couple of different ways. In the case that I was speaking of, the Mesa Heights apartment, that was land that the city owned that had been determined to be surplus. We no longer needed it. The project that it was acquired for was not going to go forward. So we were able, I mean, the lawyers had to do what lawyers do to make it possible. But ultimately, because the council was willing to go out on that limb in order to attract some affordable housing, we were able to donate it. There are grants available that can help you acquire land that you can then put in as match for a housing development project. A lot of times, those grants, as I mentioned, come with some strings, and so you have to weigh, are the strings worth the contribution that it would make to the project? And then finally, you know, if you have a private individual that owns some land and they want to bring their land to the table, they can then be like a partner in that housing development. And sometimes in the performance, there's a way that they can be paid out over a period of time into the future, again, so they can maintain the cash flow that they need to make the apartments feasible for the long term. There's a number of scenarios, but it all starts with the land. And if you don't have any place to build the affordable units, then you're not going to get them. So,
Thank you.
Did that answer your question?
Yes. Thank you.
Please.
I had a comment and then a question for Ms. Sims. Please, first, the comment, I was very happy and very impressed to hear about the 4 families, and it's very impressive that you're able to increase that in this challenging time. So thanks for that information and the update. And then I really have to say, I didn't know really anything about I think it was the critical repair program. I think that was what it was called. So if I'm asked, what are some of the types, by community members, what are some of the types of repairs that might qualify, and then the process to get into that program?
So the process for the program is they contact us, they tell us there's a need and they have an ask. Oftentimes it's what we currently do with the funding that we have are roof repairs, we do water damage repairs, we build wheelchair ramps, we've done a lot of water damage repair both internally and externally, whether it's a faucet that's been leaking or a pipe leaking under a sink, or someone just had some flooding situations in their house, and so their floor is now not safe for them. We've also done what we call partial bathroom remodels, where we have a homeowner who has started falling and their bathroom is just very unsafe for them. So we take the tub and shower enclosure out and just put in a safe shower structure so that there's no longer that need to step over that tub. We put bars in bathrooms. So we've done firewizing, where we have properties, folks that have properties, they just have a lot of stuff in their yard, and so it's no longer safe. So we've gone out and we've done total cleanups and gotten removed a lot of things. So what we have not done, because we have not had the increased funding, we have not done total roof replacements. We haven't done, trying to think of something else that we haven't done. We haven't done any major electrical or plumbing repairs, although we've done some minor plumbing repairs. But whenever we have to do those kind of projects, we do hire subcontractors. We don't allow volunteers to do that. But so I think that answered your question. And those homeowners do have to fall in the same income category as our future home buyers, and that's 30 to 60% of the area median income.
Okay, that was very helpful. Thank you.
Any other questions from council? I wanted to ask Tanya, Yavapai College is working on a 3D house print program. They're kind of leading the effort on this tip of the spear. Is that anything that you're going to try to get involved with?
I haven't yet, but I think it's very attractive. It's very interesting. Can you imagine us having a home that can be built on site through that 3D model? I think what our issues are right now are building codes that address that kind of construction.
All right, and then are you working with any of your potential homeowners on Yavapai County's new over-the-counter house permit? I forget what the name of that is. I think, Debbie, you mentioned that earlier. But Tanya, are you working with any of your potential homeowners on that?
No, not yet.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, if I can ask a couple questions, and this is just maybe across the board, but in the city of Cottonwood, one of our obstacles, in addition to the traditional cost of new housing, whether it be multifamily, high density, either way, is the cost of getting utilities to the land. So we don't have a centralized water system on the other side of the river. We don't have a water and sewer going out east on 260 where there's land, where there's state trust land that would be prime for development for a project, but we can't get utilities there. Are any of you aware of any federal funds or state funds or otherwise, or have tackled that problem somewhere else?
Rhonda, you're muted. There you go.
There we go. I'm sorry. Yeah, let me jump in. That is a perfect CDBG project, and it sounds like it's going to be a costly one. So it may be one that you would have to think about doing in terms of phases, or maybe in partnership with some other kind of a funding source. But CDBG does lend itself well to doing infrastructure to support a housing development. Now that housing development is going to have to bring benefit to population that CDBG serves, which is a lower income group, usually 80% of AMI, if that means anything to any of you besides Tanya and I. But we would have to document that benefit so that once the subdivision or the apartments were built, you would have to be able to show that at least a little bit over half of the people that live there were served by the investment of the CDBG into a water line or a sewer line. Talk to ADOH.
Thank you, Rhonda. And can't wait till you can come up and have a glass of wine with us, by the way. Waiting for that.
Absolutely.
And this question might be for Mrs. Smith, maybe. When we started this housing study about a year and a half ago, or the study of the housing group, and one of Sedona's primary issues, and I think is a smaller issue for Cottonwood, and for the Verde Valley, is Airbnb, is the short-term rentals. So we lost a lot of our long-term rentals to short-term rentals. During this pandemic, is that still the case? Is there any solutions on the horizon? I mean, every long-term rental that's converted to short-term rental is no longer available to our workforce. Any thoughts on that?
I do know that it's an issue. I know it's an issue in myself talking with other leaders in the state, at the state level as realtors. It's rampant in Scottsdale and every other part of the state and the country, in fact. So it is an issue that, you know, the individual communities need to deal with, and turn around and deal with it with the state and what those requirements are. I have not seen so much that the pandemic has slowed up much of the short-term rental capacity, because so many people are working remotely. They can come and do their job at a beautiful place like the Verde Valley or Sedona. So I haven't seen that slow up much, other than, you know, travel restrictions from other areas getting here.
All
I can tell you a lot of what's happening on those. So I've seen a lot of those short-term rental properties that were bought up and turned into short-term rentals. They're not being converted to long-term rentals, but they're being sold off left and right. There's one just hit the hot sheet today. But they're being sold off. They're not being transferred over to.
As sold off as short-term rental, you believe,
No.
or as a house?
No, they're being sold off as homes.
All right. All right, final question for Rhonda. Two questions, really. Has Ron told you how nice it is here, and when will you be moving to the Verde Valley?
I like to say that I am always a free agent. And my contract is always under negotiation. But the wine is tempting.
All right.
You have to pay us to come here.
Yeah, right. All right, well, thanks to all of you. I'm sorry Mr. Lawler couldn't join us, but I really appreciate all of your time. Mary, it's good to have you back again. You're all champions in providing for workforce housing. You know, it's always hit our strategic initiatives. I do think that COVID's brought it really to the forefront, but I also see just a ton of opportunity. And it seems like we have every partner on the phone right now that we would need to make something happen here in the Verde Valley. So really look forward to continuing to work with you all, and hopefully we can make some traction on this issue. All right, so again, we'll take a quick break and come back with our last panel. Thanks again, everyone.
Hey, Tanya, if you're still on the line, if you can send me that list you made of all the things we can do. I wasn't writing fast enough, but you had a great list. If you could send that to me.